this fairly new treatment, an alternative treatment to depression.
Yeah.
There's several different
An alternative non-drug treatment to it.
non-drug treatment. Yes. What is it called?
TMS, Transcranial Magnetic Stimulation.
And what's the device? Who makes it?
Well, the device that we use is made by Neurostar, and Neurostar is really, we consider to be the Cadillac of TMS devices. It's non-invasive, it's very comfortable, it's a magnet that sits right here on the prefrontal cortex. It emits a magnetic pulse, and it's very comfortable.
Yeah. And what kind of results have you seen since you've been using this treatment?
Well, the results that I've seen have been amazing. I have been practicing psychotherapy as a psychologist for 22 years, and the results that I see with TMS, I could not get in this amount of time with a patient in psychotherapy. So the things that I see are, I would say the major ones, I see a lot of things, but the major ones are resilience. People who are depressed, typically when a setback comes in their life, they aren't able to cope with it very well because they don't have a lot of emotional energy. They're depressed, and so they tend to spiral down into depression over even minor setbacks. And after TMS, I continue to see them as therapy patients, and they tell me that they're amazed that minor setbacks now, they just bounce right back. And they'll give me a lot of instances and a lot of examples of situations. Like one patient's daughter was in a car accident. She was okay, but he said in the past, I would have been angry at her, I would have been overwhelmed, I would have been angry at my family, I would have found people to blame, and he said all I cared about was being compassionate with her, and I've never been that way. I mean, and he said he bounced back. So a week later, he was good, he was fine. He wasn't constantly thinking about it, and it didn't cause him to become depressed. So I would say definitely resilience is one of the big effects that we see that lasts. Another big effect is clarity. People say that they're able to problem solve, they're much clearer, they're much more focused. Another one that I see is a lot more energy. People say it's easier to get things done. It's easier to knock out a list. They say I'm not trudging through quicksand anymore. That's a big one. The other really big one that we see is a lot of people are bombarded with thoughts all the time. It causes them to be distracted, it causes them to be anxious, and it causes them to be depressed. People say that that voice that's going round and round and round calms down. Suddenly they can concentrate better, they can get things done, they can problem solve, and they're just calmer. So I'd say those are the big ones I see, is that voice calming down, the resilience, the problem solving, the clarity. On top of that, the other thing that I see is more energy, better sleep, and I'd say 50% of patients say they get better sleep, not everybody. More patience, more compassion, more ability to see them, to observe themselves and their behaviors, and the impact that they have on others. So I had one patient yesterday who said, I didn't realize how I acted at home. I didn't realize how overbearing I was. It never dawned on me, and then I could see it. And I thought, why do I do that? No wonder. He said, no wonder my family doesn't want to hang out with me. So he's more compassionate. His wife said, as she put it, there's been a monstrous change.
That's funny, because when you think depression, I guess what I think of is someone who has no motivation, just wants to stay in bed,
right.
Not really even like having time to be overbearing or controlling. Right. Let alone compassionate. Yeah. So what is depression?
That's a really good point, because depression can manifest as irritability, all kinds of things, agitation. Depression is, there are all levels of depression. We are treating major depression. So major depression means that you will have such symptoms as lack of pleasure in things, maybe sleeping too much, eating too much, not enjoying the company of others, having trouble getting out of bed, possibly suicidal ideation. Even if they're not planning to do anything, a lot of people walk around with a lot of suicidal ideation. And how they'll typically express that to us is they'll say, I'm not going to do anything, but I think that maybe everybody and me would be better off if I just wasn't here. That doesn't mean they're actually going to take action. We see a lot of suicidal ideation, difficulty concentrating, difficulty planning, difficulty following through. This is why depressed people get deeper and deeper, more deeply depressed, because then when they try to do something, they can't bring it to fruition because it's hard to concentrate when you're depressed. And then, of course, a negative mood, negative thoughts, and a lot of painful thoughts.
Yeah. And you said that can you show us that?
Sure.
How the depression
Sure.
works in someone's brain?
So this is a PET scan, and this is a non-depressed brain, and this is a depressed brain. A PET scan measures blood flow, it measures energy uptake. So if you look at the non-depressed brain, all of these neurons are active, they're firing, they're getting blood flow, they're active. If you look at this brain, the depressed brain, which is also referred to as a dark brain, there's just not much going on here. So if the non-depressed brain encounters a setback, then it has lots of resources, and it would probably problem solve like this. Oh, that's a horrible thing that happened. Maybe a job loss, maybe something serious, maybe a financial loss. And they'd say, this is terrible. And then their brain would say, well, let me think how I can deal with that. You know, I could look at it this way. I could try this. Well, maybe in 5 years, well, maybe it isn't the worst thing because now I can do this. So it has resources. It'll reframe. This brain has a financial setback and says, oh, another event in my life, my long train of events that are all negative, and it's still happening to me, and it's going to happen forever. It's not going to get any better. Just one more thing, and they spiral down, and they stay down. And this is usually where they are when they come to us. They're down. And maybe they're barely working, or maybe they've stopped working, or maybe they're really struggling at work because these thoughts are so negative and they're down. So what we do is, this is the magnet that we use in TMS. It delivers a magnetic pulse to the prefrontal cortex. This is where the depression lies. This is non-invasive. The magnet lays right here on the prefrontal cortex. This is where the depression lies. And the magnet delivers a magnetic pulse that stimulates the neurons, and then the brain becomes more like this brain. So that's what we're doing, and each session is about 20 minutes. There are 36 sessions in a protocol. The patient sits, watches a movie, has a TMS treater right there with them, and it's really fairly enjoyable. And they sit there, and the idea is that the magnetic pulse stimulates their neurons so that their brain is operating like the non-depressed brain.
And this treatment is used in conjunction with medication and therapy, right?
Oh yes, we absolutely recommend therapy. So people, for insurance to cover this to cover TMS, a patient must have failed on 4 antidepressants, although there is one insurance company who has just reduced that to 2 antidepressants. So we think there's a trend going on there which will make it more accessible to more people. So if the patient has failed on, say, 4 antidepressants, then they can be eligible for TMS and insurance will cover it.
So it's not for everyone.
No,
right?
Yeah.
And then talk about some of the horrible side effects that you were saying earlier with people on antidepressants for such a long period of time.
Well, that's what brings a lot of people into us, is they say, I've been on antidepressants for maybe 20 years, maybe 30, and they say it's the side effects that are getting me. And the side effects can range, there are very many, so it can range from nausea, weight gain, agitation, insomnia, brain fog, a lot of people say, libido issues, lack of sexual desire. Some people feel flat. Some people feel that they're not lively. And then there's all kinds of other ones. If people get off their antidepressants, sometimes they go through some other side effects like muscle twitches. Insomnia comes up again. So a lot of people feel like they're in this place where now they're having to take antidepressants, but they're not getting the result they want to get. As one patient said to me, antidepressants made my life tolerable. TMS made my life enjoyable. And I think that is what we hear. People feel like they are engaged again. They feel like they're enjoying life, enjoying their friends, participating. And that's really exciting. But to your question about can they get off medication, we want patients to stay on their antidepressant medication while they undergo the treatment. But at the end of their treatment, then they need to confer with their doctor. And if their doctor decides, yes, we can start to taper, then that's fine. We do not want a patient to ever taper off their drugs themselves.
Got it. And you said there's basically no side effects for this treatment.
There is one side effect that is listed in the research literature, and that is a dull headache, if in a very small percentage of patients, but if they do get that, it tends to come in the very first week, and it might last during the actual 20-minute treatment, or it might last for a few minutes after, but it's dull, and we say, take Tylenol, and it goes away. By the second week, we really haven't seen patients have headaches.
After this 6-week treatment and somebody goes on in their life, they're feeling good, and then maybe they get into a dark hole again, do they just come back and do another treatment?
It's a very good point. If they get a good result, and we're measuring their result at all times, we use something called the PHQ-9. If at the end of their treatment, their PHQ-9 shows that they have had a good, solid response, so if they were depressed up here and their depression comes down, so if they've had a significant response and we've documented that, then if their depression comes back, their insurance will treat them again, which is amazing. We've had 3 patients come back and want to be treated again out of about 140 that we've treated. But the results do last. If you look at the research, the majority of patients will hold on to their effect between 6 months and a year. But there's a whole nother chunk of subjects in the research who've held on to their result for many years. We've had patients come in to see us who did this procedure 10 years ago. And we had 2 in 1 week, and I said, what brings you back now? And they said, my depression was starting to come back, which we thought was really funny in a way, because wow. And then they got a great result again.
So you've had this for 10 years? Or
No. This machine has only been out for a few years. We've had this machine for a little over a year, and we have a large practice, so we bought 1 machine and immediately started treating quite a lot of patients. We were a little skeptical, like, what are we going to get? Even though we had researched it like crazy, we were so happy with the results, we bought 3 more machines. It's a really fun place to come to work because we get to see the change in people who are really depressed. And as a psychologist, that's what I got in the field to do.
Sometimes we see a positive response as early as the first or second week in treatment. Yeah, what the mapping is all about is we give impulses and look for finger twitches to occur in the right hand. And first of all, we go back and forth over the side of the head until we locate the motor strip. And then once we locate the motor strip, we go up and down until we find the thumb twitch. Then the treatment area is exactly then 5.5 centimeters in front of the thumb twitch area on the motor strip.